Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break. We are thrilled to welcome Jeremy Johnson to our conversation. When the announcement arrived that Jeremy Johnson was going to lead the newly formed Assembly for the Arts, many banners read that he boomeranged back. Growing up in the Glenville and Huff neighborhoods, he grew to love the arts through exposure to the Cleveland Orchestra. His third grade visit to the Cleveland Orchestra allegedly left him unable to sleep for weeks. Through an infatuation with the armor exhibit at the Cleveland Museum of Art and piano lessons at the Music Settlement. Jeremy's return to Cleveland comes after a successful career in the arts in New Jersey as Assistant Vice President of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, as philanthropic liaison for the Council of New Jersey grant makers to the city of Newark, and most recently as Executive Director of the Newark Arts Council. After almost 3 decades of loaning his abundant talents to New Jersey arts organizations, he finally saw the light to return to his home where he could make an impact in the newly formed Assembly for the Arts. The Assembly's goal and Jeremy's task is to offer a unified voice for a $1 billion creative economy in Northeast Ohio. The Assembly is a unique collaboration of arts organizations and leaders, and Jeremy serves all with passion and patience, which he has nurtured over a lifetime. He is deeply committed to the advancement of arts organizations as well as the individual artist. As Jeremy wisely noted, I have a role as a conductor, but everybody is playing a part in the composition. Cleveland Leadership Center is thrilled to be one of the newest partners with Assembly for the Arts as we work together to strengthen the entrepreneurial spirit and elevate equity in our arts community. Jeremy, it's all yours.
Amazing, Marianne. That introduction was really just something else. And I really got to bring you along with every speech I give, because that was just amazing. I'm humbled and honored to be with all of you today, giving up your half an hour for Way Forward Leader Lunch Break on one of the hottest days of the year. So please be cool and be safe out there. I'm going to jump right to it, and I'm going to be sharing my screen. I hope that's okay for this first part of the conversation. And I hope you can see a screen that says Assembly for the Arts, Cleveland Leadership Center. I see. Great. Marianne said it stole a little bit of the thunder, but that's okay, because some of these things they are worth repeating. And let me just get my mouse to work with me. Yes, my formative years in Cleveland, they paid off at the Music School Settlement on the left. Whether it's the Cleveland Orchestra, I love that story, and I couldn't sleep for weeks. As many field trips and as I remember going to when I was in CMSD, we still need those for our young kids. Cleveland Museum of Art, Karamu House, those are part of my formative years, but I have returned to do something really big with many greater Clevelanders, and that is work with a group called Assembly for the Arts. I'm thrilled. I saw on the invitation list Clyde Miles, one of our board members who's here. The mission of Assembly for the Arts is to be a unifying voice and a unifying platform for this $9.1 billion arts and culture industry. And we're going to do that through 2 things: expanding the pie of resources, of technical assistance, expanding the pie and increasing the equity. I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but I'm just really thrilled that Assembly for the Arts is a new organization. We are a year old today, and we follow in the footsteps of 2 prior organizations, Arts Cleveland and CPAC, but we are newly constituted with some 27 board members representing all manner of our greater Cleveland population and organizations and industries. I'm really thrilled to share this picture, this mosaic. I show this all the time because it's not always the case that our leadership organizations, our leadership circles look like this mosaic, a picture of greater Cleveland. I'm really proud of that. We work with 3 particular segments. And part of my short talk today is going to really talk a little about what Assembly is, the opportunities and the funding mechanism for the arts and culture sector, the challenges, and some new announcements that will really ignite the sector and by connection, ignite Greater Cleveland. We are not just nonprofits, we are artists and nonprofits, but also cultural businesses. Just 30,000 foot view, in case you didn't know, arts and culture, they are a critical part of our economy, nationally, statewide, and locally. I'm not going to go through all the stats here, but what you should walk away remembering is that arts and culture represent a larger share of our economy than transportation, tourism, or construction. 4.2% of our gross domestic product. That's huge. And even within Ohio, we are huge drivers of the economy with some 329,000 jobs, $18 billion in payroll, so forth and so on. This research is something that Assembly for the Arts specializes in, and gathering the actual numbers, the statistics that help us fight for the arts, fight for culture, fight for the quality of life that we have in our great city. Now, let me narrow it down to Greater Cleveland itself. One of the numbers that I was so impressed when I first came to this region was that the Greater Cleveland area really invests $9.1 billion into the economy from arts and culture, representing over 62,000 jobs. Even within the city of Cleveland proper, according to some other research we've done, that's $2.9 billion, over 15,000 jobs. There are all manner of statistical firms that we're working with to gather this data, and I'll explain why this data is important in a moment. But even as we dig deeper, a few weeks ago, we can find out how the data relates to people and to things that make our city great. So the big four, is how the headline called them. You all know the Cleveland Orchestra, the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Rock Hall, and of course, Playhouse Square. They did their own study that showed that they generated $800 million to our economy. And if you've been to any of those institutions lately, you know how important they are to what makes our city great. But it's not just the bigs, but it's also all manner of smaller, medium-sized, diverse artists and small businesses that make Cleveland great too. I just took this one little sample from the Front Triennial. That was every 3 years, a big arts exhibit that involves international artists, national artists, and local artists. And there are other triennials. There's a whole slew of things happening this summer. So stay tuned to hear more about that. But this one festival generated $31 million working with artists, creatives of all kinds. So, and also they brought this wonderful, in partnership with Case Western Reserve and other partners, this wonderful permanent sculpture to the University Circle area, which is terrific. Who do we mean? Who are we talking about when we talk about arts and culture? Yes, we're talking about people that paint and people that sculpt and people that act and people that play instruments. But we're also talking about designers and architects. We're talking about spoken word artists. We're talking about media arts. It's a huge industry. So I just shared this pie slide to indicate how far flung this industry is. It's your traditional artists, but it's also other creatives working all across our city and our region. And speaking across our city and our region, we would not be a vibrant city with our vibrant neighborhoods. There are 17 distinct wards in the city of Cleveland, and beyond that, there are neighborhoods in our inner ring and outer ring suburbs. Last weekend, I had the privilege of going to one such neighborhood, the Larchmere Arts and their partners. It was called Rock the Blocks. That was the name of the festival. I share this image just to share that small businesses, brown and black entrepreneurs, that musicians, that artisans, that shop owners are a key part of the vibrancy of Greater Cleveland and the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. As I walked through this festival and I heard singing and performers and I saw shops and children doing art, I saw local businesses. We cannot invest enough, in my personal opinion, in the small business entrepreneurial sector of our city, of our region. And I'm thankful for festivals like this, and they happen across our city. I could have gone to probably half a dozen festivals last weekend. I just happened to be at this one. We need to continue to invest in artists and creatives that are part of our quality of life. Now, to change the topic a little bit, or quite a bit, it's been tough because of the pandemic. You all already know this. You're working in the field, so you know how that pause that we had the last 2 years, the racial reckoning that we've dealt with, the issues of health have been pretty devastating. The research is showing that the devastation has hit the arts and cultural community even harder than other communities. Our screen here shows almost a 40% job loss in Ohio in the sector. And there's just more sobering news. In Cuyahoga County, according to a study by our sister organization, Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, there was a loss of 2,500 jobs, more than $41 million in revenue loss, 6,200 in cancellations. So if you had to sum it up to say, we have been hit harder than any other industry. I'm not going to read through this whole slide, but it does give you some stats around Cleveland, the greater Cleveland area, a study that we did with Bowling Green and with Ohio Citizens for the Arts. We need these numbers because when we go before our lawmakers, when we go before our county and state officials, we need to show the impact of the positive things that arts and culture deliver, but also the impact of the ongoing suffering from the pandemic. So in Cleveland, we were down jobs by almost 16%, more than any other industry. COVID dollars or COVID impact on the region down by double digits in percentages compared to single digits for other industries. And I'll be happy to share these slides with you all. Yet one more slide, and before I end, just showing graphically the number of jobs that were reduced in Ohio, economic output reduced by $8.6 billion in the Buckeye State. And there's sort of a double whammy of the pandemic because we are very fortunate in Cuyahoga County to have one of the strongest and largest local municipal funding agencies through Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. Voters, you all voted to tax cigarettes to fund this some years ago, and that created $20 million infusion into our institutions and nonprofits and smaller nonprofits. So that was great, and that's been driving Cuyahoga County now for almost a couple decades. And of course, more sobering news, because fewer folks are smoking, those numbers are going down. Here we see graphically, we can predict it going down from $20 million. Last year, CAC gave out about $12 million, which is significant across the field. And this is one reason why we are here at Assembly for the Arts, why I'm here. What do we do about the declining of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, about the effect of the pandemic? How can we work together? How can we bust the silos to be stronger, to advocate for increasing that pie? So what are some of our solutions? A number of them, obviously leaning on the federal government. We were able to do that recently with CARES funds, and we're now working on ARPA funds. We've got all these acronyms, of course. ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. We're working with Ohio Arts Council, Ohio Citizens for the Arts, local public funding, and others. So what's happened to date, and what can Assembly point to in this first year? We're still just 1 year old, barely a toddler. Well, I'm very pleased to be thankful to your county executive and your county council for committing $3.3 million from ARPA. We've got requests in, and again, Assembly, we're doing this on behalf of the field. Request to the city of Cleveland for $10 million, knock on wood, and we're continuing to advocate for that. Working with the state of Ohio on a $50 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. And some good news for some of us. Just yesterday, Governor DeWine signed into law the latest capital act, the latest every 2 years is a capital budget. And I'm pleased to share that in Cuyahoga County, some $9.25 million was awarded to Cuyahoga arts and culture institutions, 13 of them. You might have read about this at the cleveland.com, but you didn't read the whole list. So I want you all to know all of these groups were part of that capital appropriations. And at Assembly, one of the things we want to do is to acknowledge and to thank those at the state level, the county level, and local levels who are making this possible. So stay tuned for how we can acknowledge our on the state level, the governor and others who were responsible for some $9.2 million that just was signed by the governor yesterday for every place from the Cleveland Zoo to Karamu House. And there's more to come. One thing we want to do the next time the capital appropriations roll around, we want more organizations, more smaller, more diverse organizations to have the wherewithal to advocate for this. Almost every organization on this list worked their behinds off working with advocates, with lobbyists in Columbus, and they paid good money to make sure that their voices were heard. And we need to expand the way the voices are heard of all of Greater Cleveland's organizations. So this is a bit of good news, and we thank the governor and our legislators for that. Finally, I want to end with another bit of great news and a big announcement. I feel like this is a great anniversary gift to the community and to Assembly, and it's also about entrepreneurship. We are very pleased to announce that as of today, we are launching applications for the Arts Leadership Residency. Some 20 different artists, nonprofits, or businesses will be able to apply for technical assistance and a 6-month process of learning about entrepreneurship, how to run their businesses more effectively. We will be partnering, I'm proud to say, with Cleveland Leadership Center, and this is powered by Huntington. And we also have the backing of Assembly's own list of major benefactors, including the Cleveland Foundation, the Gunn Foundation, the Fowler Family Foundation, and others. We're really proud to launch this residency. We'll be working with Cleveland Leadership Center on the curriculum and the experts in the entrepreneurial world so that we can provide a real close mentorship style work with the nonprofits, small businesses, and others who are dying for this type of work. I want to point out that it's not just something folks will sign up for, pay a fee, and get this. We are actually providing a stipend to them to pay them for their time. You know, opportunity costs are great, and we need to remember that with nonprofits and small businesses. So there is a stipend associated with those who are part of this residency. I want to also acknowledge my staff who may be on the call today, Valerie Schumacher and Meg Matko, who are working very closely with me to make sure this program gets off the ground. So I've talked enough, and I think I'm at time, so let's open it up for questions.
Great. Jeremy, thank you so much. And we are so excited to be working with you on the Arts Leadership Residency. So let's start with the program. So what do you hope to see from this program? What should folks anticipate if they look to apply and participate in the residency?
That's a good question. I mean, it's going to cover a number of categories: financial management, diversity, equity, and inclusion, marketing, depending if you're a small creative business or a small individual, how are you marketing yourself? How are you packaging yourself? And it's going to address sort of one of those, I don't want to say it's the elephant in the middle of the room, but when I arrived in Cleveland, many organizations and associations were talking about the divide and the gaps between our leading organizations and organizations with smaller budgets. The gaps between, sometimes we talk about the East Side and the West Side, but also the gaps between our BIPOC organizations. By BIPOC, I mean Black, Indigenous, people of color organizations, and the rest of our arts and culture sector. This group is meant to really sort of be a pilot to really address that. How do we provide the supports where we can begin leveling the playing field so that the arts industry is not only successful as representing the arts, but representing equity. So those are two of the things that, for starters, that we want to get at. But we also want to listen to the needs of those who are part of this constituency. We're not just going to get there and start spouting off and talking and talking. Part of this is a listening exercise. So we ask those who are applying to share with us, asking them to share with us, what are the challenges they are facing? How can we be supportive of their efforts, whether they're an individual creative, a nonprofit business, or a small for-profit business.
And as you look ahead to this first year with the program and then beyond, what does success look like? What do you hope to see coming out of the residency in this first year?
Well, that's a very good question. You know, turning the Queen Mary around doesn't happen on a dime. And building equity and helping organizations grow doesn't always happen quickly. But we are hoping to see, number one, better financial acumen, better understanding of how your budgets work, better understanding how marketing works, and better connectivity. Part of the reason why Assembly exists is busting silos. Are we connected to others in positions of power, others in positions of arts, others who are able to work together? I saw, for example, on our call today, let me give you a good example of partnerships and collaboration, and I hope that will come out of this. There's a group called the Julia de Burgos Cultural Arts Center, one of my favorite nonprofits in the city. They just were given an award by the Cleveland Orchestra at the MLK concert for their work in collaboration. They work with a very diverse community on the Near West Side, but they also work in collaboration with large institutions, such as the Cleveland Orchestra, such as piano, and they meld it all together. So when I go to their center and see what they're doing, I see not only a wonderfully diverse local community, for example, getting COVID shots before they enjoy a concert, but I see regional-wide arts institutions that are partnering with them. And they do such a great job of, you know, I saw a world-class winning pianist at their local cultural arts center last summer. And it was amazing. It was a community concert, but they had the winner of Cleveland's piano competition and right there with us together, a wonderful person. Anyway, that's just one example. I hope to see more collaboration so that we all can gain from the resources that are available to us. Sometimes we don't know about all the resources. And that's part of what Assembly can do. How do we make those resources available, bring them to the grassroots and the grass tops?
So, and as you look out into our community, where do you see possibilities to use the arts as a catalyst for growth in particular neighborhoods around Cleveland?
That is such a great question. So let me let you all in on a little secret. We have a hidden agenda, which is not so hidden. When I first arrived, we did community focus groups with artists, with arts organizations. We said, what is needed? There were two things that they said, the two things at the top of the list. Number one, please make sure there's ARPA funding for artists. And number two, and this is a little secret, please make sure our city hall has an arts office to help manage and to help coordinate. We have a place that helps to leverage. So we are working on that right now with the mayor. The mayor is committed to helping us to do that, and with his folks. Having that office in City Hall, I cannot tell you how important that is. Great art cities, all of them have an office in their municipal government that helps coordinate, that helps leverage more funding, more federal funding, public and private. So we're really excited to be pushing and nudging that along. The mayor has given us every confidence that will happen. We have support from the city council. So that is happening. That's one of the things we're moving forward. So I'm not sure if I quite answered, but I did share that hidden agenda that's not so hidden.
So Jeremy, you have been back for about a year now. Assembly has been here for a year. How has that year been? What has surprised you most since your return back to Cleveland?
I knew Cleveland was a great art city already because of how I grew up. But what I'm learning more about is the state of Ohio. What you all as Ohioans, as Northeast Ohioans may already know that I have just learned, which surprised me, is how much we have to advocate in Columbus for what happens in Cuyahoga County. We can't just put something on the ballot and vote for it here. We have to make sure that Columbus has to give us that permission. Let me repeat. Columbus has to give us that permission. So what surprised me was how much government advocacy is part of this job. It's a huge part, and it should be part of all of our jobs. In a state like Ohio, which is politically very interesting, let me put it that way. We have to build those bridges with Columbus, and I'm very excited to build that. But that was probably the most exciting part, the most unusual part that I've learned, working as a state advocate to impact Cuyahoga and our whole state.
And now as you look ahead for the next 5+ years of the Assembly, what's your vision? What's to come for the work of the organization?
What a great question. My vision is that Cleveland will be seen nationally as both a city of the arts and a city of equity. That's really, I want us to be in the headlines for what we are doing around leveling this playing field. All of you here are professionals. You follow what's happening with Cleveland nationally, and oftentimes those headlines are not flattering about the challenges that face our city, that face the divides. We also can be leaders in the solution. We've got great leaders in City Hall and in our associations and civic organizations and philanthropic organizations. We can be the leaders in turning the table. You know, I love an underdog because it gives us room to build great. We've got some great things already going on in Cleveland, and we can take it to the next level.
And as a boomerang who has now been here for a year since coming back, what surprises you most outside of the arts, outside of the work that you're doing, about our community? What excites you? What has surprised you?
The trails, follow your trail, follow your path. Metro Parks, when I was visiting, I mean, they are phenomenal. And the lake, of course, you know, but the trails leading to the lake, and how our creative is going to be a part of the reimagining of our landscape, our literal landscape. We've got all these big billion-dollar projects. My vision is that creatives will be part of this reimagination of Northeast Ohio in a big way. I love the Metro Parks, and they just, have you done those stairs in the Rocky River Reservation, the Stairway to Heaven? You've got to do it, folks. It's fun.
So for those of us who are on the call and want to get involved, one, in the residency, how might they go about doing that? And then two, for those who want to support the organization, what do you need and how might they go about getting involved?
Of course, we have a website and we have social media, but you can visit our website and it'll ask you for your email information, one of those pop-ups. Sign up for that and you'll start getting information. Our website is www.assemblycle.org, www.assemblycle.org. And from there, you can find information. You can link to a sub web page on the new Arts Leadership Residency.
Well, Jeremy, I mentioned that this 30 minutes was going to go very quickly, and here we are at the end. Again, we are so excited for the partnership on the Arts Leadership Residency and for all that the Assembly for the Arts is doing. And I will be sure to share the website in my follow-up email so that everyone who is interested, check out the organization, check out the program, and please share widely with the artists and organizations in your networks to be sure that they have this opportunity. And Jeremy, we thank you for joining us today.